Always a good kid. He always wanted to help people. He hated going up high. So I was kind of surprised he wasn't afraid of ladders, because when he was little, he just didn't even want to get on a step stool. And he loved 4-H. He was just an all-around good guy.
He was an absolutely wonderful big brother, you know. He truly would knock me down, pick me up to knock me down again. You know, but he was always somebody you could always rely on. You know, it didn't matter day or night. You always knew you could call him, and he'd go, "All right, you're kidding? Fine, I'll be there." So, you know, it was great to have him.
Well, first off, I don't know how he got his height. He was so much taller than anybody else. There wasn't anything that anybody could ask him to do that he wouldn't do. If something needed to be done, whether it was at home or in the community, he didn't ever say, "Well, I can't do that. I'll get somebody else." He just did it, and we miss that.
John was always there to help. And he never said no unless the family came first. And his family was his most important thing in his life. So that's what we miss on the department. Is having ask John, you take care of this? Sure will, Terry. And I could depend on him for that. So we miss him a lot.
I mean, what everybody's saying, but I think that it's almost being undersold here a little bit. You know, with respect to community, there were so many things that he was involved in and dedicated to. You know, coaching, just volunteering so much of his time. 4-H, the fire department. What else am I missing?
Basketball.
All the coaching and basketball stuff. Old Engine Club. He was involved in farming. Just community, country. But the nice factor too, John worked for the Village of Pentwater Department of Public Works, and it's not always a fun place to work for. You're getting calls and complaints a lot, and John was the guy that people always like to go to because, just like everybody said, he never complained, he just did it, and he always did it with a smile. So not only did it just get done, but he wasn't bent out of shape about it. I also work up at 911, and we get calls in all hours of the night. He was the only one that would answer the phone, you know, other than business hours. So, you know, we've got this list of people that are supposed to be called if there's a problem, and we would just not even bother calling the other names. We would just call John, because he's the only one that would ever answer and get stuff done.
One thing, he was a terrible tease. He loved to tease everybody. And so we miss that. Nobody teases like John. So, yeah.
I don't miss crying out your David.
Yeah, when they were little, he would get up in the morning and say to her, "Oh, I think I'm going to cry today." And he'd have her crying. She'd hit him with a hairbrush. I'm staying out of this. But he was just always a tease, always a tease.
I still carry a hairbrush.
These two go at it just like John and Mary Ann did. So it's kind of
You wonder
fun.
where we get it from.
It's kind of fun.
We got used to leaving, you know. He'd have to leave at things, and we just got used to it.
Oh.
But he always made sure his girls came first, even with all this stuff he did. They were first.
Yeah. And that's
He did their coaching. He just was always there for them. You know, when we went to do stuff, we didn't leave our kids home. They went with us for everything. They went to the Old Engine Club. They learned how to do the threshing. They learned how to do the corn husking. They were with him in the tractor, in the orchard, and everything.
Excuse me, a lifelong friend of ours at the beach. They're doing bricks, memorable bricks, and our friend Joe, who knew us before we ever had kids, said, "Well, John was a real gift to life." So that's what we put on his brick. He was a gift. So.
Every Christmas, he would, like, we'd have the big present trees, and, like, when you'd go to get her a present, he'd, like, stick his foot out, and he'd fall over, and he'd grab you, and then you can't move to go get your presents or anything. He would do it to you the most. And then he'll step on your toes, so you can't move your feet.
Well,
And now I do it to you.
and one thing, you know, I didn't realize how much the kids watched my brother and I, but
Us too.
right, but like this little darling that I love decided to at school pull a guy's finger back because he was this way because he was messing with her, and I said, well, why did you do that to him? And she says, well, that's what you do to your brother when he picks on you. Oh, and you never quite knew. Like one Christmas, I was harassing him, and he was much bigger than me, but I didn't even, it was the year I realized that I really couldn't pick on him too much anymore because he picked me up with one hand, and I'm not little. And he just held me up. And then dropped me and laughed and walked away, and I thought, whoa, okay, I really can't pick on him anymore.
Not so much with the fire department members, but the ambulance crews are in there at different times during the day. He was always picking on different people all the time. John, he always spent his lunch hours at the fire department. He was always mostly playing on the computer, playing his farm bill. So he didn't pick on the guys. That I recall.
When he knew it was time to be serious and duty, that's how he was.
Yeah.
Even Ralph said that the other day, the farmer. You know, Ralph would say, you want to have a beer? And John would be like, no, I got spraying to do. I got to run the tractor. You're not supposed to be drinking.
Well, and another thing, I never let him leave the house without giving us hugs. And so the girls used to laugh. We have a little landing, and he would always pick me up, give me a big hug, say, is that good enough?
Can't describe how he walked, but he, you know, they
Had
said
his own swagger.
He said he had this swagger. You know, he was 6'5", and probably 6 foot of that were legs. So he was a big guy, and if you didn't know him, he could look pretty intimidating. And I would joke around. I've got 3 daughters. I would joke around that when they go on a first date, the boyfriends were going to go have to talk to John before they could go out because
In here.
he looked. I'm a big guy, but he just looked far more menacing than I did. So.
Honey and I and my brother and some other friends from town all went out together to have fun.
It was your birthday.
It was my birthday, but we had a lot of fun, and it was time to go, and I'm not quite sure, but we got some pretzels. And he was walking along and hanging pretzels, you know, on top of signs that were like, you know, and it was really funny. And then we went to another bar, and I sat down, and some guy bought me a drink, and my brother came over and pounded my shoulder. And I looked at his watch because it was time to go, and I went, and I didn't even say anything. I picked up my beer and I handed it to him. And the guy's like, I just bought that for you. And I said, well, he's like, is that your husband? And I went, no. He's like, is that your boyfriend? And I'm like, no. And I kind of laughed. I said, it's worse. And he goes, who is that guy? And I said, that's my brother. And the guy went, oh.
Because like he had a little smirk, but you couldn't he was like Grandpa. But
I sort of
he doesn't
do that.
laugh much, but like when he's happy, he's got a little smirk, but you wouldn't always smile unless you knew.
And he was a great dad. And he loved to pick me up and make me touch the ceiling. When Mandy fell asleep in his bed, her dad picked up Mandy and went to go wash her face off because her face is all messy with when she posts.
Covered in SpaghettiOs.
Yes, and my dad has a picture of it on his.
Yeah.
And then on Marianne's birthday, I wasn't there, but after the bar, they came back and there was a skunk in her yard. And their dog, Joy, and then
John said to get out, Marianne, and he drove off and left her standing in the
He
driveway
did.
get sprayed by a skunk.
Yes, and
And
the car
got sprayed. He did. He opened the door and he goes, out now, and he pushed me. I went, but he threw the keys as he drove away in my car. But we only live
1/10 of a mile away.
Yeah, a tenth of a mile down the road. So we're like neighbors. And I know one day he used to love to, I don't know if he loved to, but he used to plow my driveway all the time. One day I came home and my driveway was all plowed, but so was my front yard in figure eights. And I never said anything to him, and it was about 2 weeks later, and he finally said, well, what do you think of your front yard? And I went, oh, yeah, it was nice that you plowed. He was so mad that I didn't get mad. So the next time he plowed it, he plowed the entire front yard. That time I did get a little mad.
He would pick me up for practice, and the school knew that we're really close. So we went to Adventure Club one time, and Mom was late, and John goes, "Oh, I'm just gonna take her," and we were like, "Okay."
I think the big thing is it didn't matter because he didn't lie, he didn't cheat, he was just an all-around good guy that he didn't say a lot, but when he did say something, people just said, okay. I don't think many people really, he just was a good guy.
He was kind of like the CIA guy. I always said you should work for the CIA because no matter what was going on, he never gossiped about it. You could ask him and he'd say, I don't know, But another thing, and he was a donor, gift of life, and they were really excited. It was kind of funny because he was young and so healthy. They could take 80 parts. That's a huge amount of parts. So, anyways, I just think that's just shows how he really wanted to help people. So.
You're talking about the cows and the calves. John died. Now, Morty took that cow with you.
Mercedes 4-H calf was sick. And when I went home and talked to Gift of Life at 2:30, it was alive, and we were back by 6:30. It passed away. It was gonna be my scare for this year. But he knew it'd be too much for us to handle. Just to show how good he is. How much he took care of everybody.
The thing that stands out in my mind, Terry's been on the department for how many years? When'd you join?
85.
Okay, so John had 10 years. He went on 700 calls, and that's
187.
787 runs. We don't get that many runs in a small town. He worked for the DPW. Most of those were medicals, but he amassed a huge number of call responses in a very short time, and that just kind of embodied his overall commitment to all the different things he was involved in. He was just always there. He was always there when that tone went off, and we're all going to miss him a lot.